today's Consumer View, getting a good deal on a new car. Are some of those used vehicles the way to go? Our car expert, Casey Jordan, is with us this midday. Thanks so much for sitting with us. I know we're talking about used vehicles, which we see a lot of them on car lots, but some of those used vehicles actually come from rental locations. Even fleet vehicles.
Yes, a lot of these vehicles are rental and fleet vehicles, and typically these vehicles, for the most part, are four-door sedans, mid-sized four-door sedans, and some SUVs and pickup trucks. You're always going to see that strange mix of that rare sports car or something like that rental companies always like to have in their fleet just to rent to you for some fun.
That makes sense. So when it comes to these vehicles, we're seeing all different kinds of them. How do you actually know which one may be used because another driver had it, or if it's one of these that used to be a rental vehicle, used to be a fleet vehicle?
Well, some vehicles you'll notice you'll go right to a rental fleet company like a Hertz or an Enterprise, and they have their own reselling system where they'll sell their fleet vehicles. Now, also the next way to know if it's a fleet or rental vehicle now is look at the Carfax or AutoCheck report, and it will be clearly spelled out in the AutoCheck report whether this is a fleet vehicle or a rental vehicle.
So when you're out there and you're looking and you have all these different options in front of you, is it a good way to go? How do you know which is best for you?
Well, you really have to do a little bit more due diligence when you're looking at a rental or a fleet vehicle. The difference between a consumer vehicle and a rental and a fleet vehicle is pride of ownership. When you own the vehicle yourself, you take care of it a certain way, and you have a vested interest in the value of the vehicle. When you're renting, and you certainly drive it a different way as well, when you have a fleet and a rental vehicle, you need to know how it was taken care of. Obviously, you know who owned it, but you don't know who was driving it. And that's really a big factor. When you have a rental or a fleet vehicle, you need to make sure that you get a complete service history on the vehicle. These days, many of these rental cars are going up to 30 or 40,000 miles before they're turned into the public. And that's a real red flag in time to make sure that all the oil change and the maintenance has been done on that vehicle.
Now, you mentioned that some of the rental locations themselves, you can actually find cars for sale there. Where else might you find one of these vehicles if you really want to take a look, see if this is a good way for you to go?
A general used car lot, and again, they will spell it out. But for the most part, they're not going to be in the consumer section of the newspapers or anything like that. They're strictly going to be on a lot of some sort from a professional dealer.
And what do you see more likely out there whenever it comes from a rental place, when it comes from a fleet vehicle? You mentioned occasionally you might see some of those sporty cars, but really what are you going to get out of that?
A lot of times what you're going to get again is that mainstream four-door sedan. Many of the vehicles, though, that do go into rentals and fleets are not popular consumer vehicles. The manufacturer isn't selling it very well in the consumer market, so they're going to discount the vehicle and go to the fleet market, because the fleet and the rental company is looking for a four-door sedan to rent to someone. It doesn't necessarily have to have all that consumer appeal that someone who's actually going to make a purchase. So some of the vehicles out there in the rental and the fleet markets are not necessarily going to be your first choices for consumers.
Casey Jordan, thanks so much for your time. If you have a question, you can always email Casey. That email address you can send is askcasey@kview.com.